If you were stranded on a mysterious island where every night a horrifying demon comes to pick you off one at a time, what would you do? This tribe is forced to survive without food, shelter, or any form of technology, and when darkness falls, their entire world turns into a living nightmare. We're making it out of the Stone Age with this one, so stick around as we break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the prehistoric demon in Out of Darkness. If you think that the modern world is scary, then you haven't seen a damn thing yet. At the dawn of history, 45,000 years before the invention of TikTok, a small group of 6 humans sit huddled around the safety of their campfire on the shores of an uncharted continent. They're surrounded on all sides by the crushing darkness and the unknown dangers that lurk just beyond the edge of the firelight. Starving, freezing, and terrified of what lies ahead, the wise old man, Odell, tells the story of how they separated from the rest of their nomadic tribe during a harsh famine and decided to head west across the sea in search of a new land. After narrowly surviving the journey, they were relieved to finally reach their destination, but quickly discovered that everything wasn't as perfect as they'd hoped. Nothing could grow in the soil, there was no prey to hunt, and the nights were haunted by demons that had lived there for as long as time itself. Growing frustrated, the group's leader, Adem, tells the old man to be careful with his words, insisting that he's strong enough to handle anything that might cross their path. What he doesn't realize is that one of these demons is stalking them from the shadows at this very moment, and after just a few more days, only 2 of them will be left alive. At sunrise the next morning, the group's only other female, a young stray named Bea, goes down to the shoreline alone in search of anything that she might be able to eat. She's followed by Adem's younger brother, Gair, who stops to have a quick chat with her. As they're returning to camp, Bea jokes that they might have to eat Odell soon, having no idea just how close to the truth that she really is. With everyone up and at 'em, the group quickly packs up their campsite and gathers at the top of a low, grassy ridge, where they can see a cluster of foothills, shrouded in the misty morning fog somewhere off in the distance. Adem explains that that's where they're headed, reassuring them all that they'll find food, caves, and shelter in the hills where they can finally settle down. It won't be easy, but they're sure that they've survived worse, never suspecting that this is the last journey that any of them are ever going to take. Okay, damn. It looks like the Flintstones have really fallen on some hard times, huh? They're up against survival in its most raw and challenging form. Not only do they need to find food and shelter, but without any pre-existing form of civilization, they'll need to essentially make all of that appear from scratch. After losing all of their supplies on the trip over, time isn't on their side, but neither is anything else in this new land. So if they want to survive, then it's going to take some strategy. First, we need to figure out where this new land really even is. If you're like me, then your first thought might be that they've made it to North America, but we're actually about 20,000 years too early for that. Instead, we know from Odell's story that they sailed west across the sea, which means that they must have landed in the area that would have eventually become the modern-day British mainland after leaving from somewhere in continental Europe. This is important because knowing where they are gives us a better idea of the environment and the potential dangers that they might face. The climate during this period was known for its incredibly harsh winters, and don't be expecting a summer break because the rest of the year was just as damp and chilly. This is the tail end of the Ice Age after all. If you're caught outside without some serious caveman drip, then you could get in trouble fast. We're talking hypothermia, frostbite, and other illnesses that they didn't even have names for yet. That's why shelter and fire were so important. They're literally the difference between life and death. And don't even get me started on the wildlife. On this island, they're going to be competing with woolly mammoths, woolly rhinos, cave bears, and even cave lions. All excellent potential sources of meat and fur, sure, but also excellent potential sources of your demise. The key to not ending up as one's lunch was to stay in large groups, use their spears and other stone tools for self-defense, and create traps or barriers so that they could avoid direct confrontation while hunting those dangerous species. Other risks might not be as exciting, but they're just as life-threatening. The limited resources and intense competition mean that they'll need to use their survival skills to forage and scavenge for any supplies that they can find. There are also environmental hazards like flood and fire, meaning that they'll have to think carefully about where they choose to settle down. And then finally, there's the biggest threat of all, which are other humans. Adem and company might think that they're the first people to land here, but if they could make it, then others could have too, and they need to be extremely careful about how they approach things if they happen to run into them. With the scarcity of resources and shelter, territorial disputes could quickly turn deadly without warning, which means that the only thing more dangerous than the cave lions could very well be their new neighbors. Clearly, they've got their work cut out for them, so where should they start? Well, before setting off on this journey at all, I'd consider trying to stay local. From the looks of things, that's a long expedition to make with such limited supplies. And there are no guarantees that they're going to even like what they find if they somehow manage to get there. Instead, as long as they're creative, they could manage their basic survival needs right here. In general, their most important needs are water, shelter, and food in that order. Let's start with water first. This one's actually not too difficult. As a nomadic tribe, Adem and the others should already be very familiar with how to locate a source of drinkable water not too far away. As for shelter, when you don't have a cave, the next best thing is to make one. They could use the hills for natural walls and cover up their exposed angles with wood, stone, or animal hides. Alternatively, they could just dig right into the side of the hill Minecraft style and make themselves a temporary place to chill where they'll at least have some shelter from the wind. Now food is going to be challenging, but the good news is that they're already expert hunters and scavengers. They've already started searching for any prey or edible plants nearby, but there's also no reason to ignore the ocean, which could be a great source of fish. All in all, this isn't the worst place to set up camp, but if they're determined to make the trip to the mountains, then they need to do it carefully. They should be very observant of the environment for threats and always stick near sources of water or follow animal trails which will potentially lead them to water, shelter, and new hunting grounds. Since there's no telling what they might run into out there, Adem and his friends need to stick together and keep a low profile. The key is to move during the daylight, stay out in the open, watch for any signs of trouble, and always be ready for a fight. With Adem leading the way, the group sets out on their quest, determined to find a place that they can call their home. The first hours are spent bounding with confidence over the grassy hills and marshes, but as darkness falls on them for a second time, they're back to gathering nervously around the campfire, with nothing to do but sharpen their spears and listen for the sounds of their inevitable moonlit deaths approaching. The following day, Adem and Gear set out on a morning hunt, desperately scouring the plains for any scrap of food that they can bring back to the rest of the group. After searching for miles, Adem finally discovers a trail of mammoth fur leading them down into a steep ravine hidden between the two sharp stone cliffs. While Adem circles around, Gear follows the trail down the slope until he comes across an area of the valley where the stones are stained with deep red blood. Sensing danger, he quickly raises his spear and cautiously circles around, ready for a fight, but it looks like the fight is already over. There on the stones, they find what's left of the mammoth, killed, skinned, and picked completely clean. Confused, Gear questions whether it might have fallen from the cliffs, but Adem suspects that it was deliberately forced over the edge, and then harvested for every usable bit. After thinking it over, Adem tells Gear to keep this a secret from the others, fearing that the news of another predator nearby would cause them to panic. As far as they know, there aren't supposed to be any other humans already in this new land, and Adem's not sure what might have killed this enormous beast. But now, even he's starting to worry that they could be next. Okay, at least now they know that there's something to eat on this island, but since it's already been hunted, at best, they've got some competition, and at worst, whatever did this is a threat. So the important question now is, what could have killed this mammoth? As a quick reminder, these beasts stood up to 12 feet tall at the shoulder and weighed as much as 8 metric tons. So taking one down would be a challenge to say the least. Based on the evidence, the scene here reminds me of an ancient hunting strategy called a buffalo jump, which was used by primitive hunters to kill large game, most often the American bison. Essentially, the hunters would find a steep cliff like this one, and then strategically drive a herd of bison to stampede towards it, causing them to plummet over the edge. The animals would either die on impact or be so badly injured from the fall that the rest of the hunting party could move in and safely finish them off without any trouble. Just like we see here, they'd butcher the animals on site using stone tools and then take whatever valuable resources that they could carry away for their various survival needs, such as food, shelter, and clothing. Based on the hunting strategy, we can guess that whatever did this possesses human or near-human levels of intelligence, and that they prefer to use indirect tactics against their chosen prey. If whatever's responsible is strong and intelligent enough to take down a full-grown mammoth, then their little tribe could be easy pickings. It's no use hiding things from the others anymore, because you're going to have to deal with this mystery hunter sooner or later. Better to get everyone together and figure out a way to deal with the threat. If it's an animal, then we already know the drill. Stick together, stay by the fire at night, and keep that thing on you. And by thing, I of course mean your favorite spear or club. For now, it's better to avoid a fight, so don't go looking to confront it unless it starts hunting you, or you're really hard up for food. Now, if it's a group of humans or something else, then we can take another approach. In this case, we don't know how many of them are out there or how organized they are. So it could be better to avoid confrontation altogether and try to make some friends. People who have been living on the land already probably won't be too thrilled about some strangers showing up on their doorstep, and if you start getting all defensive and ready for a fight, then that's just going to increase the tensions. Instead, they need to try and find a way to communicate that they don't want any trouble. I mean, whatever it is could be watching them right now, and that's a terrifying thought, but they can also use this to their advantage. They probably won't speak the same language, but Adem and the others could still try calling out in a non-threatening tone and seeing if they get a response. They could also make a grand group gesture of putting down their weapons and holding up their hands to show that they aren't looking for a fight. Other methods could be sending up a smoke signal or tying some furs to their spears and waving them around like an early version of a white flag. Finally, there's the most classic idea of all, which is leaving out an offering as a symbol of your friendship to show that you're not a threat. They may not have much food or supplies to share, but that's alright. If that mammoth kill was recent, then the mystery people won't need food anyway. Instead, what they could do is make a little trinket of some kind and leave it out in a conspicuous place overnight. If it's gone the next day, then you know that someone's out there and may have successfully made first contact. You still can't be sure if they're nice or not, but hey, at least it's a start. With any luck, they could end up being welcomed into the community and given food, shelter, and supplies. Of course, there's also the chance that they'll cook you and make furniture out of your bones, but you never know until you try. Adem spends the night standing guard as the others lie awake around the fire, jumping at every snapping twig and rustling blade of grass. Terrified, Bea decides to secretly grab a nearby sharp stone. It's a wise choice because soon that stone is going to save her life. The group survives the night without trouble, and after setting out the next morning, they find themselves in a foggy, wind-swept valley between the steep, rocky hills. While the others laugh and frolic around, Adem keeps his eyes fixed on their destination, with only him knowing the danger that could be hiding behind every turn. Just then, he hears his son, Heron, call out to him from somewhere in the fog, but as he looks around, the boy is nowhere in sight. Panicking, Adem desperately begins searching for his son, only for Heron to suddenly appear a few feet behind him, treating everything like it was just a game. Adem, on the other hand, doesn't find his disappearance so funny and scolds the boy never to leave the group before taking him to catch up with the others. After 2 days of non-stop walking, Adem's pregnant wife, Ave, finally needs to rest her feet, so he tells the others to set up camp while he and Gear explore a bit further in search of some food. Up ahead, there's still no signs of life besides the occasional sun-bleached animal bones, until they find something even worse than the open plains. At the bottom of a steep hill lies an impenetrably thick forest, spanning for miles between them and their final destination. Upon seeing this, Adem decides that they need to take the long way around, despite Gear's estimate that doing so will add days to their journey, refusing to expose the rest of the tribe to the danger that he's sure lurks within. As they turn back to camp, Gear takes one last look into the trees, never realizing that there's something in there watching him right back. Returning to the others, they find Ave in seriously bad shape, unable to bear the pain as both she and her unborn child are slowly starving to death. All of a sudden, they're snapped back to reality as an unnatural, high-pitched shriek pierces the stillness, sending everyone scrambling back to the fireside. The group quickly forms a defensive circle, silently waiting to see what will happen next, and they can hear the sounds of something circling around them from just out of sight. For a moment, it seems like the danger might have passed, when suddenly, Heron is grabbed by the creature and dragged away into the darkness before the others can even react. Furious, Adem grabs a torch and breaks off from the others, desperate to rescue his son, but Gear insists that he needs to stay with the group for the sake of his wife and unborn child. It's a tough call, but Adem reluctantly agrees, deciding to listen to his brother's better judgment, at least for now. All at once, they suddenly realize that the demons from Odal's stories are very real. Okay, man, that's terrifying. Our boy here just went from Heron to hair gone, if you know what I'm saying. And there's no telling who could be next. Just got real, so first things first, we need to talk about their strategy during the fight. Overall, they did pretty good. They huddled around the fire, took defensive positions. The only problem was that they kinda left the kid on the outside. We've all seen a nature documentary before, right? Picture what it looks like when the elephants run into the lions down by the watering hole. They always form a circle with the younger ones in the middle, and the same idea applies here. Now, what does this tell us about their mysterious attacker? Well, let's use the same comparison. In the wild, predators like lions and wolves will often target younger members of a herd because they're the least capable of fighting back. That's bad news for Heron, but it could be good news for us because it means that whatever attacked is afraid of being hurt. Alright, we know that so far, whatever it is only attacks at night, prefers to get you by surprise, and probably lives in that forest. So what should Adem and the others do? I hate to say it, but they may have made a mistake by not going after the kid right then and there. If it was an animal that took him, then by now he's probably done for. This is real nature after all. If it was humans, then there actually might be a chance that Heron is still alive. A small chance, but a chance nonetheless. Think about it this way. If whatever attacked them had the tribe overpowered and outnumbered, then why not just get them all here and now? Instead, it actually ran away from the group, and that could be a sign that it's weaker than we think. Maybe if they'd all chased the heron together, then they could have stopped whoever took him before they were able to get too far away with the kid. Then again, it could be a setup for a trap. Unfortunately, by now, it's a bit too late, and it's risky to go after them on their own turf. They could try to track them down and confront them head on, or maybe there's a way to set up a trap of their own. Here's the plan, right? Find a spot where they're sure that they aren't being watched, like set up a fake campsite, wait until nighttime, and then pull an Uno reverse on the creeper when they show up looking for their next victim. Either way, it's time to make some more spears and get ready for a fight, because whatever it is doesn't seem friendly, and it's only a matter of time before it comes back. Unable to sleep, Adem is ready to go off in search of Heron before the morning sun has even broken through the clouds. At first, Bea refuses to go with him, but Gare is finally able to convince her by pointing out that splitting up from the group will only mean certain death. Following the trail, they manage to find the boy's cloak lying in the mud not too far from their camp, and it's covered in some kind of mysterious black sludge. Adem takes this as a sign that his son is still alive, but there are fates worse than death here in the valley, as he'll soon be finding out for himself. It's already late in the afternoon by the time that they realize where the trail is taking them. Straight back to the edge of the forest that Adem swore that they would never enter. Nervous, Gare reminds him that the woods are just too dangerous, but now Adem is blinded by his single-minded desire to find his son, and he immediately sprints into the trees without hesitation, forcing the rest of the group to reluctantly follow him into the unknown. Adem dashes through the forest like a man possessed, hot on the trail of Heron's attackers, as the others begin tossing aside their supplies just to stay close. Catching up with him, Gare tries to bring Adem back to his senses by hitting him with the harsh truth that his son could already be dead, but the man refuses to listen. Although it's only a matter of minutes before dark, their leader still insists on continuing the chase, offering the others the choice to either keep up or stay behind and figure out how to look after themselves. Running after him, Ave suddenly stumbles into a massive pile of discarded animal bones buried in a pit of the same black sludge that they found on Heron's cloak. This is it, the demon's nest, and it's only a moment later before they can hear the creature approaching. As the reality of what they've just discovered starts to set in, Adem and the others immediately take off running back in the opposite direction. But now they're hopelessly lost, and the sun is about to go down. With no other choice, Adem orders the group to stop and light a fire, seeing it as their only chance to survive the night. Dropping to her knees, Bea starts desperately banging stones together while the others keep watch, but she can't get a spark to catch no matter how hard that she tries. Everyone holds their breath as the sun sinks lower and lower, with Bea finally managing to get a small flame going just as they're engulfed in total darkness. It's a close call, but they're not safe yet. Just then, they hear the creature prowling through the trees just out of sight, and Adem quickly fires off a spear in its general direction. After a moment of silence, the creature seems to flee deeper into the woods, causing Adem to blindly charge after it and leave the relative safety of the fire behind. But that, as you can probably guess, was his biggest mistake. Adem moves through the woods like a skilled hunter, keeping low to the ground and listening for any sounds from his prey. But the truth is that he's the one who's really being hunted. The creature is always watching him from just out of sight, patiently waiting behind every tree for the perfect moment to strike. As confident as he was before, Adem's nerves are finally starting to get to him, and in the split second that he lets his guard down, he's suddenly ambushed from behind, taken by the creature before he ever has a chance to fight back. The battle's over before it even started, but Adem's death isn't as quick. From the campsite, Gare and the others can hear him screaming for help. They stand there silently, listening for a minute, contemplating what they should do next, until suddenly, Gare abruptly breaks from the group and charges into the darkness after his brother. A short while later, Gare returns to the rest of the group, and he's dragging Adem's mangled body behind him. In the dim light of the fire, they can see that the man's lower jaw has been violently forced open and split in half, leaving him with the look of a permanent grotesque scream. And the worst part is that he's somehow still alive. There's nothing that anyone can do to save him, so Bea steps forward to end his suffering. Okay, I guess it's too bad that dentists won't be invented for another 35,000 years. Sorry, Adem. If they do somehow manage to make it out of here alive, then you can bet your Paleolithic posterior that I'd never be leaving the cave again after seeing some shit like that. Thank you very much. So they're officially stuck in the woods as long as it's still dark. What to do now? Well, first off, I'd suggest gathering up any branches or rocks that aren't too far away and making more weapons if they can. The one good thing is that the creature seems to be scared of fire, so I'd stick close to it until the sun was back up, and use flaming branches to fight the creature off if it decides to come back. For tonight, they're going to want to stick together and stay alert for any more signs of trouble. In the meantime, they need to figure out what they're gonna do in the morning. The most important thing is to get out of the forest, but first, they'll need to get oriented. We know that they sailed in from the east, and the mountains seem to be straight inland, which should put them generally to the west. If they can see what direction the sun rises from, then they can either try heading that way to get back out or go in the opposite direction and try to finish cutting through the mountains on the other side. They can also follow waterways if they need to. They just have to be extra careful that they don't accidentally run into whatever got a dam. If they end up getting stuck for another night, then they'll want to stop and get a fire started early and use any available materials to construct whatever kind of shelter or defensive perimeter that they can. Anything that they can do to make themselves a harder target. You know what I mean? As a final thought, if they happen to come across that nest again during their travels, then they could try lighting it on fire and possibly forcing the creature to find a new place to live. Although, based on what happened to Adem, making this thing angry doesn't really seem to be the best strategy unless you want to visit from the evil Tooth Fairy. Hopefully they can survive the night, but they still have a long way to go before they're safe. With their leader gone, the others nervously gather around discussing what to do next. They can't hide, and it doesn't seem like they can fight either, leaving them without a lot of options. Suddenly, a quiet Ave shudders and falls to the ground, violently convulsing as if she's having a seizure. Odal says that she and the baby will die if she doesn't eat soon, but this gives Bea a gruesome idea. Thinking it over, she points out that there is one source of food nearby, Adem's body, and the others slowly realize that she's right. While the others look away, Bea here starts cutting off pieces of his flesh and cooking them over the fire. When she's finished, everyone gathers around to chow down on some Adem jerky, with only his brother Gear refusing to participate. They begin to wonder what this creature could want, and whether it's hunting them for food or as a form of punishment for invading its land. The fact that they got Adem's body back seems to suggest that it isn't doing this for survival, and Odal thinks that they need to give it an offering in exchange for their lives, but Gear wants revenge. For now though, there's nothing that any of them can do, so Gear volunteers to keep watch while the others try to get some rest. In the morning, everyone is already exhausted from another long, sleepless night. Gear does his best to rally the others, promising that he'll take them to the safety of the mountains despite Odal insisting that they're already doomed. The group cautiously sets out with a plan to cut straight through the heart of the forest and make their way to the other side. They're determined, but progress is slow, with the constant fear of an ambush forcing them to stop and listen for any signs of the creature every few hundred feet. After marching for what feels like hours, they stumble across a horrifyingly familiar sight. It's Adem's body, and they've just spent all day walking in circles. Frustrated, the old man says that he's done playing nice. If you're going to get on a demon's good side, then you need a sacrifice, and he has just the person in mind. In that moment, everyone's eyes slowly turn to Bea, who realizes that her worst fears are about to come true. Suddenly, Ave jumps her from behind, holding the girl still while Odal tears away her spear. Gear tries to stop them, but in the scuffle, he falls to the ground and hits his head on a rock, knocking him unconscious. With Gear out of the way, the others drag Bea, kicking and screaming back towards the demon's nest, calling out for the creature to take her and leave the rest of them be. While the girl begs for her life, the same high-pitched shriek erupts from somewhere in the forest, distracting her attackers for just long enough that she's able to fight them off and make a break for the trees. Seeing the creature approaching, Ave and Odal each grab an antler from the bone pile as a way to fight back, but the old man has one last trick up his sleeve. While her attention is focused on the tree line, he suddenly shanks Ave straight in the kidney, attempting to offer her as the sacrifice instead. With her dying breath, Ave grabs Odal's leg and yanks him down too, causing him to badly snap his ankle in the fall before finally succumbing to her own injuries. And Bea disappears back into the woods, leaving a still screaming Odal to his fate. Okay, wow, look who turned out to be an asshole. If it isn't Old Man Useless himself. Odal here was supposed to be the wise man, but this whole time, I don't remember seeing him lighting any fires or figuring out how they're going to do important things like, oh, I don't know, survive? All that he did was run his mouth and take any opportunity to bring down the general vibe even lower. At least they won't have to hear him complain anymore. But you know what, Odal? You f***ed up. Odal? F*** it. Since the trip started, you were always talking about cursed soil this and demonic spirits that, but let me ask you something if you're so smart. How'd you end up with this group of outcasts in the first place, huh? You probably ran your mouth so much back at the old folks cave that they all decided that they were done with you and you needed a whole new continent to keep pulling your bullshit without being banished for it. Nobody likes the guy who always complains and never offers up a practical solution, but then, when you finally did come up with an idea of your own, this is what you decided to do? Let me give it to you straight, Chief. Trying to use an outsider as a sacrifice is one thing. We've all been there, but turning on the pregnant lady? That's just messed up, man. Come to think of it, they should have been the ones using you as a meat shield because at least then you would have been somewhat helpful to the rest of the group. What's the outlook for a guy with a broken leg in the caveman days anyway? Probably not great. Extra bad when you're trapped in the nest of some kind of demonic entity. I guess you're about to meet those monsters from your stories face to face. Good luck with that. If there's one thing positive that I can say to you, it's that congratulations for making it even longer than you should have, but Odal, you f***ed up, my boy! That night, as the otherworldly green glow of the northern lights illuminates the sky, Odal watches the creature return and drag Ave's body away into the darkness, but it looks like it's saving him for later. Sometime the next morning, Gear wakes up alive and alone and makes his way through the fog back towards the demon's nest. There he spots Odal still writhing around in the mud, but before he can get any closer, Bea suddenly tackles him to the ground and motions for him to stay quiet. From their hiding place, they watch as the demon emerges from the mist, crouching over Odal and effortlessly finishing the job. Without any warning, Bea whistles to get the demon's attention before quickly circling around to the flank, essentially using Gear as her bait to set up a trap. Sure enough, the demon begins crawling along the forest floor towards the source of the noise. But before it can get close, Bea charges in from the side and attacks. To her surprise, the creature's head suddenly comes right off, and that's when she realizes that this was no demon after all. As the attacker picks themselves up from the ground, Bea sees that she is undeniably a human woman with features only a bit different from her own, a Neanderthal, and she lets out the same shriek that's been haunting them for the past 2 nights. But this time, it's a scream of fear. Outnumbered, the woman abruptly takes off into the forest, with Bea and Gear chasing her down in the hopes that she'll lead them out of the woods. Their guess turns out to be right, and they finally escape from the forest into the morning rain, watching as the woman turns to look back at them before disappearing behind a ridgeline in the direction of the mountains. Although they've lost her for now, Bea is able to zero in on the woman's trial, but Gear has officially given up hope, and he refuses to continue any further. After everything that's happened, all he wants is to go back to their true home, but Bea reminds him that they've got no home to go back to. At this point, their only hope of survival and revenge for his brother is to track the woman back to her cave and take it for themselves. Reluctantly, Gear agrees, but they're about to realize that the woman is not alone. Following her trail up into the mountains, they eventually spot 2 entrances into a large cave system, hidden in the cliffside just a short distance away. Gear's concerned that they could be walking into a trap, but with no other choice, he and Bea decide to split up, each of them taking their own entrance as they begin to descent into the unknown. Okay, this is it. Time for the final showdown, but Bea and Gear need to think about their next moves very carefully. They have the advantage of knowing where their opponents are, but they still don't know if it's only this one lady or possibly more attackers that they're up against. As it stands, it's probably too risky to go in, so instead I might attempt to draw them out. Bea and Gear could watch from a distance and wait until they have a better idea of who all is actually living in the cave, or they could light a fire at one of the entrances and use the smoke to force them out, picking them off one at a time when they try to escape through the other exit. Even if they have a numbers advantage, they'll be up against a tough fight if they go after this lady on her home turf. So the better idea is to take a tactical approach to give them better odds of survival. Raising her spear, Bea slowly creeps over to the mouth of the cave and begins cautiously making her way inside. At first, there are no signs of life, but that's when she hears the unmistakable sound of footsteps in the darkness, drawing her attention to a small chute at the back of the chamber. The squeeze is so tight that she's forced to crawl through on her hands and knees, descending headfirst down the passageway until it opens up into another large room. As flashes of lightning illuminate the shadows, a strange man suddenly appears behind her, lunging straight for Bea's throat without a moment's hesitation. The man easily overpowers her, tackling Bea to the cave floor and shattering her wrist on a nearby stone. Terrified, she calls out for help from Gear, but he's lost in another section of the cave and won't be able to get to her in time. Thinking quickly, she decides that her only hope is to play dead, and the moment that the man lets his guard down, Bea hits him in the side of the neck with her sharpened stone, mortally wounding him before finishing him off with her spear. Up ahead, Bea notices an orange glow coming from somewhere deeper in the cave, a fire. And when she enters the next room, she discovers something stirring in a pile of animal furs on the other side. Nervous, she creeps across the room with her blade held out in front of her until she's finally able to pull back the covering, and that's when she makes a shocking discovery. It's Heron, and he's terrified, but somehow still alive. Just then, the woman from the forest appears behind them, wielding a stone club and ready for a fight. Bea forces her back with a torch long enough for Gear to find them, but as he turns the corner, he's frozen with shock to see Heron. While he's distracted, the Neanderthal woman spins around and clubs Gear over the head, brutally killing him before their eyes. Seizing the moment, Bea throws her torch into a pile of furs, setting the inside of the cave ablaze as she and Heron escape through a back passage. With Heron in the front, they climb for their lives as the chamber begins to fill with smoke, but the woman is right behind them. Unable to pull herself out, the woman starts calling for help, and Heron actually runs over to save her, but Bea picks up a rock and kills her with it instead, refusing to show her any mercy. Now that the fight is over, it suddenly sets in that these people were never really a threat at all. They'd only taken Heron to save him from starving, and even gave Ave and her baby a proper burial. It seems like all of this bloodshed was just a misunderstanding, but all that Bea and Heron can do now is try to start a new life. In the end, they've learned that the only difference between a man and a monster is what they're willing to do to survive. Okay, I just got two things to say. Holy shit, and that was crazy. I can't even imagine living life without my cell phone, so living out in the woods in the prehistoric era, no, I'm dead. I'm dead the first night. If I don't get any food in me, I get crazy. I wouldn't last very well out in the jungle, but let us know how you would survive down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'll see you guys in the next video, and have a damn good day.